My phone rang at 2:47 p.m. on March 15th, 2024, while I was reviewing quarterly reports in my home office, and the French accent on the other end destroyed everything I thought I knew about my life. Is this Sarah Morrison? I am Marie-Claire Morrison. I think we need to talk about our husband. My name is Sarah Chen Morrison, and for 8 years, I believe my husband when he said his monthly European business trips were building our future. But what he didn't know was that this phone call would start a chain of events that would destroy him completely, and that I'd been unknowingly preparing for this moment my entire career as a research scientist, because documenting evidence was already in my DNA. Where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments below. If something like this has happened to you, share your experience in the comments. You're not alone, and your story matters. Before we continue, please hit that like button. It really helps share these important stories that need to be heard. And subscribe if you want to hear more stories of justice being served, because trust me, the revenge I'm about to describe will be worth every second. Marie-Claire's words didn't compute at first. My analytical mind racing through possibilities like variables in an experiment, wrong number, prank call, some terrible misunderstanding. But then she said something that made my coffee mug slip from my hand and shatter on the hardwood floor. Daniel told me you were his sister, his lesbian sister, who helped him get his green card through a fake marriage. But I found photos on his cloud. You're kissing him in a wedding dress. The brown liquid spread across my pristine floor like the truth seeping into every corner of my consciousness, staining everything it touched. She kept talking, her voice trembling between fury and devastation, telling me about 8 years of marriage in Paris, 2 children aged 6 and 4, an apartment in the 7th arrondissement, where my husband, our husband, had been living another complete life, while I sat here in Bethesda, Maryland, preparing presentations and trusting him completely. When did you marry him? I managed to ask, my voice sounding disconnected from my body, like I was observing this conversation from outside myself. September 2016, she replied, and I actually laughed, a sharp, hysterical sound that scared me, because I pulled out my wedding album from my desk drawer with shaking hands, and there we were, Daniel and I, October 2016, 1 month after he'd married another woman. The photo showed him looking at me with what I'd thought was love, but now recognized as practiced performance, his hand on my waist in the same position I'd later see in Marie-Claire's photos, like he had a template for playing husband. I grabbed my laptop and started recording our call, my scientist's instinct for documentation, overriding my emotional collapse, because even in shock, I knew I'd need evidence of this moment, this revelation, this detonation of my entire reality. Marie-Claire sent photos while we talked. Daniel at Christmas with children I never knew existed, standing in front of the Parisian apartment he'd told me was a corporate rental for client meetings, holding a baby while wearing the watch I gave him for our 5th anniversary, the same watch he'd said was so special he only wore it for important occasions, and apparently his other family qualified. Have you ever wondered why his business trips to Europe were always exactly 2 weeks? She asked, and my stomach turned, because yes, they were, every single month like clockwork. And I'd actually praised him for maintaining work-life balance, for never staying away too long, for prioritizing our marriage. He'd kissed me goodbye 96 times for trips to his other family, and I'd stood at the door waving, telling him to be safe, missing him already, counting days until his return. 3 weeks before this call, I'd questioned a $3,000 charge on our joint account labeled European Client Entertainment, and Daniel's response was textbook gaslighting, though I didn't recognize it then. Sarah, baby, we've talked about this. Your anxiety is getting worse. Maybe you should increase your therapy sessions. You know my European contracts require significant relationship building. He'd pulled me close, fingers threading through my hair with what I'd thought was tenderness, but now recognized as manipulation, whispering, "You're the smartest woman I know, but you don't understand international business. Trust me." Haven't I always taken care of us? I'd felt crazy, actually apologizing for doubting him, scheduling an extra therapy session to deal with what he called my trust issues, stemming from my parents' divorce. The therapist had asked if there were any concrete reasons for my suspicions, and I'd said no, because Daniel was perfect, wasn't he? He sent flowers every month when he was away, called every night at exactly 9 p.m. my time, never forgot an anniversary or birthday. The conferences in Geneva, the client emergencies in Brussels, the regulatory meetings in London, Marie-Claire confirmed they were all lies, every single one. She pulled up her calendar and we compared, our voices getting higher and tighter as the pattern emerged. 2 weeks in France, 2 weeks in Maryland. A schedule maintained with military precision for 8 years. When he told me he was stuck in London traffic, he was at his son's soccer practice. When he claimed delayed flights, he was at parent-teacher conferences. When he sent me photos from business dinners, Marie-Claire had the same photos with her cropped out. The depth of his deception was breathtaking, requiring a level of organization I'd admired in his business, but never imagined applied to betraying me. Can you believe he managed this for 8 years? Let me know in the comments what you would have done at this moment. Marie-Claire and I talked for 3 hours that first day, building a timeline of lies, each revelation worse than the last. She told me about the Morrison Consulting SRL, registered in France. I'd seen it on statements and assumed it was his legitimate European subsidiary, but it was registered to their home address with Marie-Claire listed as co-owner. I found 7 more accounts that afternoon, all variations of his consulting business, all funneling money from our joint investments into his French life. The systematic theft totaled $380,000 from me alone, not counting what he'd taken from Marie-Claire, and that didn't even include the emotional theft, the stolen years, the children I'd been trying for while he already had them with someone else. My discovery of his pharmaceutical fraud came next, and this one hit differently because it involved my professional reputation. Daniel had been using my credentials as a Johns Hopkins-trained pharmaceutical researcher to legitimize fraudulent medical consulting contracts in Europe. My name, my degrees, my published papers, all weaponized for his con. 12 years building my reputation, and he'd been selling it piece by piece to finance his double life. Marie-Claire found forged signatures on property documents, my signature and hers, on investment properties neither of us knew existed. He'd been collecting rent while telling both of us the properties were losses for tax write-offs, a lie so elaborate it required separate accountants in 2 countries. That night, I transformed my guest bedroom into what I would later call my war room. Color-coded folders line the walls, financial fraud in red, immigration violations in blue, bigamy evidence in green, asset documentation in yellow. My scientific training became my weapon as I created spreadsheets tracking every trip, every expense, every lie with timestamps and corroborating evidence. I installed a hidden recording app on my phone that activated with keywords, and every conversation with Daniel from that moment forward became evidence. I photographed documents while he showered, screenshot texts while he slept, backed up everything to 3 cloud services, and a physical drive I kept in my sister Jennifer's safe. Marie-Claire became my unexpected ally, my sister in this nightmare, and we shared a secured WhatsApp thread where we compared notes in real time. When Daniel told me he was in London for an emergency client meeting, Marie Claire confirmed he was at their daughter's dance recital. When he claimed expensive dinners with investors, she sent photos of him cooking breakfast in their Paris kitchen. We were building parallel cases on two continents. Two women who should have been enemies according to his plan, but who chose solidarity instead. What would you have done at this point? Would you have confronted him immediately or gathered evidence like we did? The pretense phase was the hardest part, playing the loving wife while planning his destruction. I greeted Daniel with smiles, cooked his favorite meals, the salmon with that honey glaze he loved, the same recipe I'd later learn Marie Claire also made, maintained our routine of watching Netflix documentaries in bed, while he scrolled his phone, probably texting her. Inside, I was screaming, my skin crawling when he touched me. But outside, I was perfect because every interaction was being recorded, every lie documented. He grew bolder in his deception, believing my compliance indicated ignorance. I might need to extend the Geneva trip by a few days, he'd say, testing boundaries, and I'd respond with practiced disappointment that masked my rage. Of course, honey. Business comes first. I'll just miss you extra. One night, he held me close, whispering about trying for children soon. After this big European deal closes, and I wanted to vomit because Marie Claire had just told me she was pregnant with their third child. That would be amazing, I replied, my voice steady, while my nails dug crescents into my palms. I've been taking those fertility vitamins you got me. Those vitamins, I'd had them tested after Marie Claire's call, and they contained mild sedatives. My supposed anxiety, the confusion he'd gaslit me about, was chemically induced to make me more pliable, more likely to doubt myself. I continued taking them publicly while flushing them privately, letting him believe his control was absolute. If you're still watching, hit that like button. This story needs to be heard. The evidence cascade began with small things and built to an avalanche. First, receipts from restaurants I'd never been to, charges at jewelry stores for pieces I'd never received, then text messages I found on his iPad, forgotten in logged-in accounts, missing you, baby, to numbers that weren't mine, can't wait to be home, sent while he was supposedly in Brussels, but sitting next to me on our couch. The recordings were the worst, captured by the app on my phone, while he took calls in his home office, speaking French, which he told me he barely remembered from high school, discussing managing the American situation and keeping Sarah stable until the inheritance is secured. I discovered he'd convinced me to add him to my grandmother's inheritance account for tax purposes, suggesting I keep my maiden name professionally for my career, when really it made it easier to hide my existence from Marie Claire. Every thoughtful gesture had been calculated manipulation. The spa days he'd gift me were scheduled during Marie Claire's visits to the States. The weekend conferences I attended for work were when he'd fly his parents, the ones he told me died in a car accident, to visit their French grandchildren. Even our wedding date was strategic, timed to maximize some tax benefit while establishing his claim to my assets. The private investigator I hired, Marcus Webb, uncovered the full pattern. 3. Other women before us. All told the others were crazy exes. All financially drained. All emotionally destroyed. Daniel had been perfecting this con for 15 years, and Marie Claire and I were just his most elaborate victims. The investigator found property in Switzerland, accounts in the Caymans, an entire shadow life built on our backs. In my 30 years doing this work, Marcus told me, I've never seen anything this comprehensive. Your husband isn't just a cheater. He's a professional con artist. My emotional breakdown happened in the parking garage at work after a particularly brutal day of discoveries. I sat in my car and screamed until my throat burned. beating the steering wheel until my hands bruised. 8 years of memories poisoning themselves in real time. Every "I love you" became a lie. Every intimate moment a violation. Every shared dream a weapon he'd used against me. I called Jennifer sobbing so hard I couldn't speak for 10 minutes, just animal sounds of pain while she stayed on the line saying, "I'm here, I'm here, I'm here." But in the ruins of my devastation, something else was born. Cold, calculating fury. That night, Marie-Claire and I had our first video call. Two women on different continents, united by the same pain. And she said in her accented English, "We destroy him." And I replied, "Completely. Have you ever been gaslit like this? Share your experience in the comments. Your story matters." The strategic alliance phase began with attorney Rebecca Liu, whose office radiated the kind of power I needed. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Bethesda, degrees from Harvard Law, photos with Supreme Court justices. Bigamy, fraud, identity theft, she listed, reviewing my color-coded evidence folders. This isn't just divorce. This is criminal prosecution. She introduced me to forensic accountant David Kim, who traced money through 7 countries in 2 days, uncovering shell companies and hidden assets. Daniel had been smart, but not smart enough. Marie-Claire retained Maître Dubois in Paris, and our lawyers coordinated across jurisdictions, building parallel cases designed to trap Daniel in both countries. Jennifer, my sister who worked in social media marketing, began documenting everything online under anonymous accounts, building an audience for the eventual revelation. The story spread through Reddit, TikTok, and Twitter. 2 wives, 2 continents, 1 revenge plot. Thousands followed for updates, commenting with their own stories, offering support, sharing strategies. The sisterhood of betrayed women is powerful, and we were about to prove it. My support network expanded. My research team at work rallied around me. My boss granted indefinite leave with full pay. My parents flew in from California. Marie-Claire's family offered resources and connections. 2 families united against 1 man. The trap was set for the International Business Excellence Conference in Washington, D.C., where Daniel would receive an achievement award for his consulting firm. I ensured everyone important would attend. His business partners, our mutual friends, his biggest clients, journalists covering international business. Marie-Claire booked flights under her maiden name, and I arranged their hotel with cash. We met in person for the first time at a coffee shop in Georgetown. 2 women who should have been enemies becoming sisters in revenge. She was beautiful in that effortless French way, with tired eyes that matched mine, and we hugged like survivors of the same war. The presentation I designed was my masterpiece, titled "The Real Daniel Morrison, a Case Study in International Fraud," mirroring legitimate business presentations with charts, graphs, evidence presented with corporate professionalism. The conference organizers approved the AV requirements, thinking it was Daniel's achievement presentation. I prepared USB drives for every attendee, QR codes linking to cloud folders, physical photographs for impact, financial records for authorities, everything duplicated, triplicated, encrypted, and lawyer verified. If Daniel didn't attend, it would autoplay. If technology failed, physical packets would be distributed. If he tried to leave, security was briefed to delay him. If he attempted violence, 3 off-duty police officers were hired as additional security. September 14th, 2024, 2 RPM. I'll never forget the moment. The grand ballroom at the Washington Hilton gleamed with corporate elegance, 500 attendees networking over champagne. Daniel at the center in his Italian suit, working the room with practiced charm. I watched from the tech booth as he held court, his confidence absolute, unaware that his world had exactly 45 minutes left. I entered at 2:15, elegant in white Armani. Marie Claire and I had coordinated, both wearing white for new beginnings, and Daniel's face lit up with what he thought was his devoted wife supporting his big moment. He kissed my cheek for the cameras, whispered, "Love you, baby," for our audience, and the recording app captured it all. Comment below if you saw this coming. Did you guess how we'd expose him? At 2:45, the lights dimmed for the presentation. Daniel took the stage to applause, beginning his speech about international business excellence and maintaining meaningful connections across cultures. The irony almost made me laugh. Behind him, the presentation title appeared, "The Real Daniel Morrison." He continued speaking, not seeing the screen, but the audience murmured. He turned, confusion flickering across his face like a dying light bulb. I stood, taking the wireless microphone from the stunned moderator, my voice carrying scientific precision. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to present a different kind of case study. 8 years of international fraud, bigamy, and identity theft. The screen filled with evidence, marriage certificates dated 1 month apart, photos of Daniel with each family, bank records showing parallel lives funded by theft. The audience sat frozen, champagne flutes suspended midair. Daniel attempted to speak, but no sound emerged, his mouth opening and closing like a fish drowning in air. "You might know me as Sarah Morrison, his wife of 8 years, I continued. "Let me introduce Marie Claire Morrison, his other wife of 8 years. Marie Claire entered from the back, elegant and devastating in matching white, and the crowd erupted. Phones appeared, cameras flashed. The story was already going viral before we'd finished speaking. "Sarah, baby, let me explain." Daniel's desperate voice cracked through the microphone he'd forgotten to turn down. "There's nothing to explain," I responded. "We have everything. Every email, every transfer, every lie recorded." The presentation continued relentlessly. Financial fraud detailed in spreadsheets, forged signatures, magnified on screen, recorded conversations playing through the speakers. The audience heard him discussing managing both situations, laughing about stupid American divorce laws, planning to abandon me after securing my inheritance. His business partners edged toward exits, but found security waiting. The FBI agents Rebecca had brought stood, badges visible, while Daniel's international clients frantically checked phones, distancing themselves from contamination. Marie Claire took the microphone, her dignity more devastating than any anger could be. In France, we have a saying, "La vérité finit toujours par éclater." The truth always explodes eventually. This man stole 8 years from both of us, created children who will grow up knowing their father's truth, destroyed 2 women who chose to become sisters rather than enemies. The final slide showed both our attorney contacts and a QR code linking to the full evidence file. "For those who knew and said nothing," I said, making eye contact with Linda and Tom, who'd known about Marie Claire all along. "You're named in the lawsuits." The FBI agents approached Daniel on stage. "You're under arrest for immigration fraud, identity theft, and bigamy." The phrase echoed through the microphone he'd forgotten was still on, broadcasting his destruction to everyone. His desperate voice chased us as security blocked his pursuit. "Sarah, Marie Claire, please. This is all a misunderstanding. You're ruining everything." But we were already walking away, arm in arm, leaving him on stage with his world collapsing. The conference recording everything for posterity. What was your favorite moment? Drop it in the comments below. Social media exploded within minutes. 2 wives, 1 monster trending globally. The presentation video getting 3 million views in 2 hours. Reddit's relationship forums crashed from traffic. TikTok creators raced to cover the story. Daniel's parents, the ones he told me were dead, called from Lion, horrified and apologizing. They'd suspected something was wrong, but never imagined this scope. His mother wept, asking about the grandchildren she'd never met, and I connected them with Marie Claire. Two families finding truth in shared devastation. The locks were already changed when I reached home. Daniel's belongings in labeled boxes on the lawn. I wouldn't give him legal ammunition by destroying anything, though I'd wanted to burn it all. The divorce papers were taped to the front door, the restraining order filed, every detail handled with the same precision I used in my laboratory. That first night alone wasn't lonely. Jennifer stayed over with wine and tissues. Our parents arrived with Thai food. Marie Claire video called from her hotel, both of us raising glasses across the Atlantic. The support messages flooded in from colleagues, distant friends, strangers who'd followed the story, and 3 of Daniel's ex-girlfriends who shared similar stories of manipulation, though none as elaborate as ours. The courtroom in Bethesda, 6 months later, was standing room only. Daniel, once immaculate, appeared diminished in his cheap suit. His lawyer, the only one who would take the case, looking defeated before beginning. Judge Patricia Hernandez reviewed the forensic accounting. In 30 years on the bench, I've rarely seen fraud this systematic, this cruel, this comprehensive. The divorce settlement was brutal. I received the house, all legitimate assets, and damages. Marie Claire's French judgment was equally devastating. Between both countries, Daniel owed $1.7 million he didn't have. His consulting firm was liquidated, his reputation radioactive waste. Criminal convictions followed: 5 years federal prison for immigration fraud, 2 years for bigamy, 3 years for identity theft. Sentences to run consecutively. France added their own charges. He'd serve 8 years minimum, then face deportation proceedings. His U.S. citizenship was revoked. The accomplices fell like dominoes. Tom's business partnership dissolved in lawsuits. Linda faced charges for helping hide assets. The network of enablers paid financially and socially. I ensured everyone complicit faced consequences, because justice isn't just about the primary villain. 1 year later, my life is unrecognizable in the best way. The Bethesda house is sold, replaced by a Georgetown townhouse I chose alone, decorated exactly how I wanted without asking anyone's opinion. My research on pharmaceutical ethics has gained new depth. I understand deception intimately now, and my work on identifying fraudulent medical claims has earned international recognition. My TED Talk on recognizing covert abuse has 4 million views and counting. The Sarah Marie Claire Foundation launched 6 months ago, providing legal resources for women discovering partner fraud. We've helped 47 women already, their stories varying in details, but identical in pain. Marie Claire moved to New York with the children, and we see each other monthly. The kids call me Aunt Sarah, and I'm teaching them science while they teach me French. We're a strange family forged from betrayal, but we're real in a way my marriage never was. I'm dating again, carefully, slowly, with therapy-supported wisdom. James is a widowed professor who understands that trust rebuilds slowly. He leaves his phone face up without being asked. His stories always check out, and he met Marie Claire on our 3rd date because she's part of my story now, permanently. The book deal funds the foundation's expansion. The Netflix documentary won an Emmy. Speaking engagements at universities teach young women recognition patterns. The love bombing, the isolation tactics, the financial manipulation, the gaslighting that makes you doubt your own perception. Daniel serves his time in federal prison, his letters returned unopened. He's nobody now, just inmate number 47829. His elaborate constructions collapsed to a number in a system that doesn't care about his charm. Share your own experience if something similar happened to you. Your story deserves to be heard. Remember, If you recognize these patterns, the gaslighting when you ask questions, the financial secrecy, the elaborate explanations that don't quite make sense, the friends who act strange around you, the feeling in your gut that something's wrong despite no evidence, you're not crazy. You're not paranoid. You're not overreacting. Document everything. Trust your instincts. Build your network. The call from Paris saved my life, not from physical death, but from slow psychological murder. Marie Claire and I should have been enemies according to Daniel's plan. Instead, we became sisters. We chose solidarity over his manipulation, and that choice destroyed him while freeing us both. He thought he was playing chess while we played checkers, never imagining we would compare notes, combine resources, coordinate revenge. His arrogance was his end. The belief that women would fight each other instead of fighting him. Never underestimate women who've been underestimated. Never assume silence means ignorance. Never mistake kindness for weakness. I know it feels like death when you discover the truth, but it's actually birth. The person you're about to become is magnificent. Trust me, I've been where you are, and I'm proof of where you can go. If this story of justice resonated with you, please hit that like button right now. It helps other women find this story when they need it most. What was your favorite moment? Drop it in the comments below. Was it the conference revelation, the arrest, or the two wives walking away together? Share your own experience if something similar happened to you. This community is here for support, validation, and strategic advice. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next story. I'll be sharing more tales of women who refuse to be victims. Remember, you deserve someone who chooses you every single day, not someone who treats you like an option in their portfolio of lies. Share this with someone who might need to hear it. You never know who's suffering in silence, thinking they're alone, believing they're crazy. You're not crazy. You're not alone. And if you're planning your own revelation, remember, document everything, lawyer up, and when you strike, make it count. Justice isn't revenge. It's truth with consequences. And sometimes, the truth is the most devastating weapon of all.